The second head of lettuce. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So the first thing he says is you got to think of it this way. You got to train. You got to get rid of all the stuff, small footprint, toxic relationships, all those things. Follow the discipline of Christianity, all those things. You got to do those things. Even when you don't want to do them, you got to. That was the first head of lettuce. Second head of lettuce. Now we have to run with endurance the race that is set before us. A couple of observations about this phrase. You and I each have a race that is set before us. Now that infers, and I think it's true, that each of us have a different path before us. A different race within the framework of Christianity. A race set before us. So Tripp has his own unique race to run, his own unique challenges, his own unique endurance he'll need. And David and Tommy and Edie, all of us have a race set before us, a unique path. Matter of fact, the terms used here, the word run there is trekko. Think of the word Star Trek, and it is the root of our word track, as in a racetrack. That's the word here. Its path is one of the meanings of one of the quite often used meanings for that. It's a path. You and I have a path. And that path is filled with things that we're not going to be able to overcome and prevail against unless we endure. So here's the problem, though. You and I, instead of looking at our path and saying, how do I endure this path? We go to the Father in prayer and say, Lord, could you just give me a different path, please? I don't like this one. There's too much endurance required here. Can I just please have a different path? No, you can't. This is the path that God has laid before you. It is the path that you must run. It is uniquely your path, and you will not be able to prevail and survive it unless you endure. And it is a race, and that race word means, he used a word there that's very specific to a public event. Don't forget the crowd. Because they're up there watching us endure. And so when you really struggle and you say, I just don't think I can endure, you got to. I have a photograph of a fellow here, Marine Staff Sergeant Jose Luis Sanchez. He lives down in San Antonio. He was in, I forgot the name of the town in Iraq. And Gary, you'll know what it was. He was the lead guy on the, you know how they go out with like a group of 12 to 20 guys and go out and do their reconnaissance. And there's always got to be a guy in the front. Well, he was the guy in the front, whatever they call that. Yeah. He stepped on an improvised explosive device, and it blew his leg off. And as he laid there, his fellow soldiers came up to him. He was crying and hurt. And of course, the other soldiers form the ring, point their guns out, who's watching us, what snipers are about to try to kill us, all that stuff. They went through all that. And at that moment, as he lay there near death, he decided, I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. I'm going to do that. And that race in Boston began next to an exploded IED. That's where it started. Because he used his arms and he pulled himself onto the gurney, refusing help. Made it back to Bethesda, where they treated him, gave him I don't know if you can see in the photograph, he's got a prosthetic leg, and he began to train. And, at night when he'd wake up and the foot that was not there hurt like you can't believe, the mind playing tricks on you. And he couldn't sleep at night because of the pain. The next morning he'd get up and he would train. He'd take the day off. And he trained and he worked. And he actually is a, what do you call it, motivational speaker now. He goes and gives speeches. And he got one word: endure. You have to have purpose. You have to fight through all the problems. You have to endure to get through it. I gave that example just to help understand what endurance means. Endurance isn't a patch of flowers. It means that it's very difficult and it takes a lot of guts to get through it. That's what it means. It means sometimes you're going to sit in that chair and grit your teeth all day because it's the only thing you can do. That's what it means. We're not talking about wine and roses here. We're talking about very difficult things. And that's what the author of this text is wanting us to understand. Let us do very difficult things because we're in a stadium of people watching this race. Wait a minute. Oh, I hear somebody up in the crowd trying to talk to us. Oh, there he is. Boy, that guy's got a big family. There's a bunch of them up there sitting together. An old man, he's favoring his leg. He's got some kind of cane or something he's walking with. That old boy sitting next to him wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Oh, no, that's a Hawaiian coat. Who is this fella? His name is Jacob. He's sitting with his very large family, watching. Jacob, how did you endure? Well, when my father-in-law cheated me, and I had to work an additional 7 years to gain the hand of the woman I loved so much, I focused on the goal, how much I loved her. And those 7 years went by like they were just nothing. Well, Jacob, what else? How else did you endure? You lived a long life. There must have been a lot of endurance. Well, yeah, I came back. I thought my brother was going to kill me, but I arranged my family in such a way, and I walked right up to him. And you know what? It worked out. But then, as time went on, my wife, she's sitting here with us, Rachel, gave birth to her second child, and I loved her so much. She died. I buried her there in Bethlehem. I don't know. I didn't know if I would make it. But the next day came, and the next day, and I focused on what it was I had to do and the goal. I remembered her, and I endured. Well, Jacob, that was really tough. He said, no, that wasn't the worst of it. The oldest boy I had with her, his name was Joseph. I was devastated when the other brothers came and told me he had been killed by a wild animal. I didn't know what I would do. I was never the same after that. And can you imagine how I felt when I found out years later that, no, his brothers sold him as a slave. But ultimately, we were reunited. But there was 50, 60 years there of living in misery every day. Having lost some of the people I love the most, not knowing why I'm even doing this. But every day I put one foot in front of another, and I endured. That's what it takes to play this game, brothers and sisters. That's what it takes. You have to find a way to endure, and my fear is it's going to get worse here in the place and time we live. So sit in your chair and grit your teeth and get over yourself, toughen it up a little bit, and endure. Because Jacob's up there knowing that his life is a waste of time. All the pain that he endured is a waste if we don't prevail. Oh, I hear somebody else. Oh, he almost sounds like he's got a great singing voice. Oh, there he is. Wow. That wife of his is good looking. And he's wearing the robes of a king. There's a lot of people sitting next to him. King David. David says, I had to endure, but a lot of the things I endured were my own doing. It's because I did not lay aside the sin that so easily clung to me. I committed adultery with Bathsheba. I had her husband murdered. And because of that, you see that girl down the way over there in our row, fourth seat down? Her brother raped her. And it was my fault. And you see the man sitting next to her? He's the one that did it. And his other brother down the way murdered him for it. And that one, Absalom, he formed an army and kicked me out of my kingdom. I crossed over the Kidron Brook, going east out of Jerusalem on the run, fearing for my life. He took all my wives, ridiculed me before the public, thought I was going to die. I lost everything. One of my generals killed him. Every day after that event with Bathsheba brought a new way of me having to find how to endure. And so David says to us, do yourself a favor. Don't create your own problems. Get rid of those sins that so easily cling to us. Because all those seeds you sow, you're going to reap every one of them. I did. But I wrote songs. Many of them spoke of the Messiah that was to come. And that is where I put my hope. Just like Jacob did, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, just like Daniel did, just like Samson did, just like Jephthah and Barak and Moses and Noah and all of them that are in the stadium watching us. They're holding their breath, watching and waiting to see, will you and I prevail? Will we lay aside the things that slow us down and run with endurance? Thanks for joining us on Beginning the Word. I hope as you have begun today in the Word of God, you will live out today in the Word of God.